They say when you wear Black Power Media gear, you can accomplish anything. You play any and every position. Coaching, to kicking, to receiving, to running and juking. And, oh, my goodness. I see that again in slow motion. Get off me. And you're going to have a lot of haters coming at you. But what you got to do is you got to shake them off, and get to your goal and accomplish it. And when that's done, it's a beautiful thing. I'm talking about going hard, extra, for that extra point. And when it's done beautifully, you talking about touchdown. Oh, and the crowd goes wild and they're celebrating with you and everything. Man, let's see that again. Nice.
Black Power Media, baby. That's how we do it.
Now go to blackpowermedia.org and get you some of that gear. Empower yourself today. Yeah.
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. What up, what up?
What's up, man?
Welcome back, everybody. I mix what I like right here at Black Power Media. Jared Ball, Renee Johnson in the building. What's good?
How
you feeling?
On? I'm good. I was mad. I had a shirt in my head and then I couldn't find it.
Oh, I'm just seeing the chat. Okay. Oh man.
Yeah, and then I was like, let me just hurry up and throw something on before I'm late.
Well, I mean, you got a working mic, you got a background, you're not in the car. I mean, we'll take what we can get.
There we go.
So before we get any farther, please everybody like, share, subscribe. As Remedial Math used to say on his platform, I used to hear him say there, show some respect as you come on in, wipe your feet by hitting the like button. And yeah, Renee's crashing at the crib. She's downstairs. And it's the only way I could get her out of a car. And so yeah, anyway. So what's the latest? What's going on? How are you? What's happening?
I'm good. I actually published my first. I actually wrote an article that's published in an actual. I know. It's about abolition and democracy and why jails and cops and cop cities are antithetical to the democratic system.
Where is it?
I guess you know what? That's my bad. I should have tagged you. But you know what? You usually like spot stuff that I do when I tweet stuff out.
Oh man.
And so I didn't want to be like, you know how sometimes people be like tagging the world on. I hate doing I don't like doing that.
All right,
I will send it to you direct. I'll send it to you. Direct.
Well, because I would have liked to have read it or looked at it at least, and then so we can. All right, so we just have to set up a we just have to set up another discussion about it then.
Sounds good. Thank you, Alex. Thank you.
What did Alex say?
He said, I saw that. Congratulations, Renee.
Here we go.
So I like to write, and I've always been a writer. And so I've had a Substack for a while that I like randomly, when I get irritated enough, write stuff on. And so this is like being able to do something that people really read, that's like published in a public way, and that I'm getting such a positive response to. I'm like, I don't even know what to do with myself, because it's unexpected, what I'm getting back. Oh, I mean, I always assumed I was a good writer, but like to have other people be like, "Oh, this is really good," like that, it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling.
All right, so the first thing I got to do is, I need the link to the Substack, because I don't see it on here, but I'll find it, and I need to get this on black text on a white background. White text on a black background gives me a headache. I don't know why it does that, but when I read it that way, it gives me a headache. So I'll manipulate that and fix that. And now, congratulations.
Thank you.
And I agree. Submit to Hood Communists. Says Ricky Ryan.
All right, Ricky. We'll do.
So I mean, well, what can we get like a preview and then we'll put the link in the I'll add the link in the show description now for anyone else who doesn't have it, and then we can have you back on to talk more about it later, or we can get into it now if you want. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's up to you, really.
What do you have time for? We got.
I have to leave. I have to leave in like an hour and a half.
Okay. We can squeeze in a little bit just because so Public Square Amplified is it's a small outlet that is linked to an international conglomerate of news networks, and the person who runs it is very intent on having movement activists be the writers. Like she wants the news to come from people who are on the ground, who are involved in the movement, who are involved in doing the work, who want to educate the community. Like that's her goal. And so the article itself was for Democracy Day 2023. And I give a unique definition of democracy because most people, when they think of democracy, only talk about voting and political parties and majority rule and that type of thing. But if you dig a little deeper down into the definition, you find words like democracy is about removing people from hierarchical structures and from these false notions of who's above who. And so I really wanted to dig into the fact that policing as an entity, right? When you look at incarceration, when you look at the court system, like this whole so-called justice system is completely against that process, right? If you're trying to remove false structures, if you're trying to give people equal access to things, because equality, when people talk about it with democracy, they always talk about people being able to get to the same status or to make the same amount of money or to have like this certain ability to buy things, right? And what I talk about is more having people be able to have access to the same things, to be able to get healthcare, to be able to live, to be able to have housing, to be able to have food. Like that's actual equality. Is there's no delineation between who can get those things and who cannot get those things. And when you think about who gets policed, what gets destroyed in the effort to support the incarceral state, when you think about how policing started, when you think like all of those things is all antithetical to that, right? Like policing is literally to prevent you from getting access to those things. It is literally to make sure the people that have too much can hold on to the things that they have. So the article is really a review of the history of policing, the three ways that I see policing as being the most damaging, which is over policing in minority communities. And I dug in. It took like 2 days. I went through the Census Bureau and found the populations of cities that had high numbers of police, right? And then I found cities that had similar numbers, but different populations, and somehow have less police. And it was, it's an interesting, when I dug into those numbers, I was floored by some of the things that I found. Like, even if you look at the difference between Baltimore City and Baltimore County has more people, like hundreds of thousands of more people. It's not like a 50,000,
almost 300 more thousand,
right? Look at how many less cops they have than Baltimore City does.
Wow. So there's almost 300 more thousand people in Baltimore County, and about what is that? 1,200 more cops.
1,200 more cops in Baltimore City.
In Baltimore City.
And Baltimore City has about double the amount of Black and brown people.
But this is you're talking about the percentage of the population, but your next stat is the real issue here. The percentage of Black and Latino in Baltimore City is 67% and county is 38%. So there's your explanation.
Exactly. Same thing
and
in
maybe
Philly
a little bit over here with the per capita income.
Right. Which I thought that
That's
was
not as
going to
big
be.
as I thought. I would have
Yeah,
thought. Sorry,
I
my
was
bad.
I was surprised, and I thought that was going to be a bigger factor until I looked at the difference between Washington D.C. and Boston. So if you go to the third line, I know the colors are not working well with you, but
No,
DC.
this is good. I mean, the orange. It's just the reading a whole bunch of reading the
Gotcha.
actual text. I've already copied and pasted it to another thing, so I'm good.
So
But anyway, yeah.
DC and Boston have about the same population. And DC, although it's a little bit, it's not a huge differential Black and brown population, but it is a larger population of Black and brown people. But they make a lot more money than people in Boston do. And somehow Boston still has less cops.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a
Right,
minute.
right,
Okay, so
right.
this column right here, just because I know it doesn't show up here, so it was a reminder. This is the percent. This is the population size.
Yes.
So DC is almost 672,000 to 651,000 in Boston, which I would have thought Boston was bigger. I don't know why. That's interesting.
Yeah.
This is good. Okay, thank you for this. So then, but the percentage of Black and brown people in DC is still 50. So Black and brown is 56%.
Yeah.
So it's not quite Chocolate City, but
Milk Chocolate City.
Milk Chocolate City. But this is deep.
Yeah.
So more people in DC, more Black and brown people in DC,
And
more
more
money in DC. So the class issue. So this is for all the class first people. We got another issue. Because this should suggest fewer cops.
Right. Right. Which is what I would have expected.
Wow.
But yeah.
It's way more cops in DC than in Boston, where Boston has fewer Black people, less money. Fewer people, period.
I'm glad you're
Renee.
what I tell you as I started to put these and it was hard because there are a lot of places where there are less cops, but there's significantly less people, right? So I didn't want somebody to come back to me and say, "Oh, well, it's a smaller town." It's not really because there's only 5% of Black and brown people in their town that they only have, 100 cops. But okay. So I really went on a hunt trying to find the places with similar populations because I really, and it was not as easy as I thought it was going to be, because some places are just, they're just significantly bigger. And I found some other comparisons that worked with what I was trying to prove, but it was going to take a lot more explanation, right? So like the difference between, I think it was like Austin and Dallas. The Dallas population is significantly bigger than, it might have been San Antonio. And you'll have to pardon me. I'd have to go back to like my chart with the numbers. But one of the Texas cities was like, it was like a third of the size of the other. So you would think that the numbers would be comparable. It was like 5 times the amount of cops, right? But because, it was also a significantly higher number of Black and brown people. But I got worried about putting numbers like that in because you have to explain the context. You know what I mean? Like somebody would look at that and be like, "Oh, well, Dallas has so many more people. That's why they have that many more cops." But they don't need that many more cops based on the numbers. You know what I mean? And so it was very it was an interesting dive into the over policing thing that it blew my mind a little bit. I say it all the time because I know it to be true that if you live around Black and brown people, you are over policed. But to be able to see it in numbers, right? Like clear cut like that. And it was always the differential. It was very, very interesting. And then
wow, this is very helpful and for a number of reasons. One of which, on a lower level, just personally, is that I spent a lot of this morning reading an article by David Stamps, who, if folks remember, is one of the Black communication studies professors involved in perpetuating the circulating Black dollar mythology, that 2 Black and his crew exposed. And he
Mm-hmm.
produced an article that somebody sent to me from earlier this year that I read. I found it and read and it's basically it's basically arguing that Black people have been able to successfully use social media to increase racial solidarity and involvement in social justice. And I was just and to prove how he misuses data and ignores scholarship and other research would take a lot more work and energy than I have or want to put into it. But I was just looking at it and so to see my point is to read this morning this harmful abuse of methodology and statistics and reality to create this fantasy as he's trying ultimately to produce consumer spending data for corporations that Black people have used social media to their benefit, when in reality, as you're demonstrating here with a more appropriate use of statistics and numbers, that there's something, again, horrific happening that is not being addressed. Not that I'm happy that you're correct about what you're reporting, but I am happy to be back onto the solid ground of accurate use of data and statistics to make a point about the actual conditions of a community.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I
so
mean,
thank you for that.
You're welcome. It took a while, and I got to thank the people at Public Square because they dug in. They were like, send me every source. We're gonna link every single number to where you found it, so that people don't question. And it's jarring, like when you really look at numbers and really understand like how terribly corrupt and having nothing to do with justice the justice system is. It's bad. That's absolute statistical abuse. I love that.
Yeah.
It's bad. And then I read the DOJ report on the amount of people who were in prison in 2021, because they break it down by the numbers. And it was like you're 5.4 times more likely to be in prison if you're Black than if you're white. Almost 3.3 times the amount if you're Latino. The numbers are absurdly, they're not commensurate at all with what the population of the country is. And then, the editor said to me, did you look at New Jersey specifically? And I had not. So I went back in and I found the report for New Jersey. And in New Jersey, Black people are, I think it was like 17% of the population. And we make up 61% of the people in jail in the state of New Jersey.
What was the percentage of the population again?
It's fit. Hold on, let me make sure I give you the right number.
And by the way,
it was either 17% or 15%. But either way, it was way less.
I just want to say big teal to everybody. Refresh your YouTube, and the link to Renee's article is already there, along with some other relevant links. But the link is there, so grab that. But I'm sorry, so 15 or 17%, but 61% of the prison population.
61% of the prison population in the state of New Jersey.
Wow,
it's absurd. And then the last piece was looking at how resources are taken from communities to support this system when they could be used to support the community. So obviously I talked about Cop City in Atlanta. I brought up Baltimore. And I brought up Newark, which I got to say, there's not a whole lot of conversation about the fact that they're about to repurpose an old abandoned school to build a training facility. And it's only part of a plan of a $300 million Cop City that they're trying to bring to Newark, New Jersey.
So you got a $300 million one in Newark, like we got a $300 million one down the street in Baltimore.
Well, yours is a little more. I think yours is I think yours is 330.
330. Yeah, I was trying. Yeah, I know. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, get your money up, Jersey. Get your money up. You can catch up to little old Maryland if you try.
Right.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's wild. It's wild. And Newark if you look at in that article, I looked up the US schools because, they do those statistics of the test scores and everything. And the school districts are failing the kids. And yet you are replacing an old school with a police facility. Like, how does that work? And they get money, right? The Newark Public School District gets a lot of money. They get a lot of money. So why are they still failing? Why are the kids not doing well? Why is there all kinds of madness going on in those buildings? Why are the teachers? I know so many people who used to work in the Newark system, and they are like traumatized from that experience, because every year you run the risk of losing your job every year. But if you drive down the Garden State, you'll see a sign that says $63,000 for new hires in the Newark public schools. But if you've been working in Newark, you're not making that. So how does that work, right? Like, it's wild when you really start looking at all of these things like pulled together. It is absolutely wild. So I tried to really lay it all out, because I find that the answer way too often to the question of abolition is like, well, what do we do with the bad people? What do we do with the criminals? And I always want to point out to people, what are they doing with them now? Right? Like, they ain't doing nothing with them now. So
no, all the bad people and criminals are left alone to live in
right.
their palatial estates and
Right.
in their C-suites and
Right.
their corporate executive first class lounges.
Exactly.
So
And
there's plenty of room in the prisons for them if we take out the nonviolent drug offenders. If we just start there, there's plenty of room.
Plenty of room.
We don't need to.
We don't need to go. We don't need to go no further. And
plenty of room.
Right. And when you even dive into like, what is crime, right? I didn't even dig into that. I just made one basic sentence of like, what is called crime is questionable, right? And Quaker on my Twitter feed shared a video that I have to now watch that actually dives into that I might pull when I start my next thing, because my next organizing thing is Pendleton 2. I'm going to do a screening in New Jersey. Fellas on board, which I'm very excited about. They're going to try and have somebody join on the Zoom. And the question of what is a crime is key to that situation, right? Because if you really think about it, all of this is based on the fact that they were trying to save somebody's life. So what is a crime, right? Like, what is a crime? And why is it that things that poor people do to survive are always the crimes that are punishable? But the things that white people and rich people do to enhance this situation or to hold on to their money or whatever is that's overlooked, right? Like, we have to have these conversations. We can't continue to pretend as if all of these things are not working in tandem against the betterment of all of us. It's just not.
Message.
That's and by the way, that's exactly the question raised in that Pipeline film that I was talking about this morning and we saw last night. That's what is a crime? Who's the criminal? So to sort of start to segue, and we can always come back to your article today and any other day whenever. But initially we were going to talk about the latest developments in electoral options. So I was wondering, to what extent do you attach the two issues? Is there an electoral, as you see it, what should be, or is there an electoral response to the conditions you're describing in that article?
So it's difficult, because I never want to condemn people who don't want to participate in the electoral process, because I get it, right? Like, I get being completely like, this is a waste of time, nothing's going to come from it. But I followed the lessons that BAP sent out for the Black August teach-in that they advised people to do, and we did one in New Jersey, and it was a relatively small group, and there was literally an argument during the teach-in about, what happens when the state comes to burn down or to dig up your community garden. Like, what do you do then? Because this is the problem. you can do a lot within your community to try and provide resources. But if you don't have a plan for when the state comes to remove those resources or to punish the people who are trying to provide those resources, what do you do at that point? And to me, that's a valid question, right? Like, how do you fight back a completely unfair, undemocratic, has nothing to do with poor working people's system that is literally constantly working against the things that you're trying to do? And so because of that, I think there has to be room for the electoral politics question. And I think you have to be able to work on all sides of this battle, because you have to have people who are willing to say, like, no, we're not going to pass that policy that's going to allow you to send, a truck, a police or whatever to go dig up this garden because you want to take control of it, over it, and sell it to the next group that wants to come in and build their set of apartments that people in this community can't live in, right? There has to be a way to battle that part that's not just about sending people to lay down in front of the trucks when they come, right? Like, and it's a hard reality. And I wish there was a way to say, like, like, we can just stay outside of it and we'll just lay down in front of the trucks. But they're just going to wait. They're either going to wait until they can move you, or they're going to run over you. And then what happens?
So then what do we do though? What's the electoral strategy? And then what are you assessing in terms of the arrival on the scene of this new PSL new in terms of this year? They run pretty much every campaign election. Right. I don't mean to suggest that it's new to them doing this, but new for this cycle, this campaign. What do you think? And then I even was seeing some more of the neoliberal, nominally white left pushback against Cornel West again this morning.
Yeah, they're still mad at him for having the audacity to tell Jimmy Dore he was wrong.
They're really upset, and I saw
really upset.
I saw I saw somebody tag me, Jalal, I think, tagged me on a Max Blumenthal clip where this is the guy that called me his friend when he was going at Jackie, but I'm like, and I almost said something, but I'm just watching this saying, because I was thinking if you had any actual black friends, they would be able to help you through this intellectual collapse you appear to be going through with this question of race and class, and this idea that somehow Cornel West, for whatever we might think of his flaws politically are, that he doesn't understand the race class divide, and that Jimmy Dore or Max Blumenthal is going to teach.
So you don't entertain these conversations, so you would not have known that this happened. So probably maybe 2 months ago or so, Chris Hedges was on Jimmy Dore, and they were having a very interesting conversation about what Cornel West should be doing as part of his campaign. And they were all about the class, and Dore with he always says this, you can't, when you're organizing, you can't say, like, you're a Proud Boy, get out. Like, that's his thing, right? And they were in agreement that this was the plan. And I thought it was really interesting that these two white dudes were sitting around on YouTube having a conversation about what Cornel, two rich white dudes at that, were sitting around on YouTube having a conversation about what Cornel West needed to do to make sure that he won the election. And so I was not surprised that Jimmy Dore was going to take this stance, because he has been very clear that is what he intended to push. He was very clear previously that he had reached out to the Cornel West camp and was making an attempt to give his ideas and feedback on what he should be doing. And I think he was surprised that Cornel West was basically like, hell no, right? Like, I just don't think he was expecting that to be the response. And I gotta say, I was Jared Petty with that. I was
That's a
Jared
new
level petty with
Jared
that.
Petty. You got Jared Petty. Wow.
I was Jared level petty because I keyed. I called my mother. I was like, let me tell you what happened. I enjoyed it to no end because I'm sick of them. I'm sick of Blumenthal. I'm sick of Aaron Mate. I'm sick of Dorr. I'm sick of all these people who have money, who have privilege, who have, these high levels of people watching them talk shit, who apparently are getting money from billionaires, right? And all of them are sitting around and telling people how they should react to this shit that's not right in the world. How does that work?
But this is like or a version of an update of this perennial problem with the nominal white left and Black liberation efforts, for instance, or any anti-colonial effort. And that's why there's been, and just as I've complained, or pointed out that across the board there's this adoption of the buying power mythology. There's also an equal rejection of white liberalism along the whole Black political spectrum.
Yep.
It's like from Dr. King to Asada has said, like, white liberals we have issues with. And in part because what's happening now is, or an increased, it feels like, I don't know, maybe I'm just paying more attention, that, or not enough, I don't know, but that the white left does not engage. It's clear that they don't have Black friends. Socially, like meaningful, substantive relationships with Black people.
Or with Black people who are also willing to tell them, like, what you're saying is bullshit.
Yeah, but I don't even, but even I'm not even accounting for differences within the kinds of Black people. I don't think they have any meaningful.
No, that's not true though. That's
okay,
not,
then I'm wrong. Okay, then I'm wrong. I'm just
Jimmy
feels
Dore,
like that. No,
Jimmy
go ahead.
Jimmy Dore has helped promote a group of Black people to their level of following and subscriptions, and they have consistently, and what I say consistently, they have consistently managed to make sure they don't lose that coattail. And they are all Black.
But I'm not talking about, okay, just to be clear what I'm saying. First of all, I obviously don't know. But what I'm talking about, I'm not talking about media operatives. I'm not talking about pundits or online activists or certainly YouTubers or podcasters. I'm talking about actual meaningful, sustained social, if not political, relationships with Black people. That's really what I meant. And where I was really going with that is that it also shows up in the work, in the analysis. Like, there's also no meaningful, sustained, substantive engagement with Black intellectualism or Black politics. So, like, for me, it was like most clear in that Norman Finkelstein interview, where it's like you're not engaging Black thought, certainly Black radical thought, even as you want to have some sort of positive intervention in the neoliberal race discourse. But it plays out here in that it just feels like, for instance, if Max and I had actually been friends, there would have been room for an intervention here. They would have heard from me and a crew of others saying, "Yo, you are misunderstanding the race class analysis."
But that is also intentional, right?
I get it.
There is a reason that Max and you are not friends.
Yes. No, I get it. I get it.
Right?
I get it.
And the reason I bring up what I bring up, and I'm trying not to get y'all in trouble with people. So the reason I bring up what I bring up about those who have built their stance on the coattails of Jimmy Dore is because they are selling themselves as Black people who are trying to help Black people, but you are doing it using the coattails of Jimmy Dore. So therefore, your analysis and your response to everything that is happening is always in one way or another curtailed by the fact that you don't want to piss Jimmy Dore off. So how can you be of assistance to real working class Black people, no matter where? And we're not a monolith. no matter what the situation is, if you are more concerned about what the feedback is going to be from the rich white man who is a millionaire boss who lives in a mansion in California, how does that work? It doesn't. And when I call it out, I get called names and cursed at and all these things and blocked and whatever. But the reality of the situation is, you have to be, if you're going to call yourself someone who is trying to uplift Black people, then at least care more about what Black people think than what the rich white dude thinks. Because we can't, that's not helping this situation, right? And Ricky brought up a good point, which was that even in his response to Jimmy Dore, Wes got I tried. Okay.
So remember,
the fact that people know who I'm talking about tells you a lot.
Well, I had an inclination. I mean, my initial critique of them was that they had the name the Fred Hampton Leftists without Fred Hampton politics. But you know, and I've wanted to have some sort of collegial relationship, and we've tried to build with them here and there. But I think that this is a I've seen them. I haven't watched, but I see on Twitter or here or there that there's a defense of Dore and those and that's not what I mean. So I get it. Like he has a relationship with them of sorts, but I'm not talking. I'm talking about. But he's not sitting down with these 30-year juniors of his and having meaningful off-record conversations and having each other over for dinner. I don't imagine that that's the case. And even if it is, they're doing it in the context you're describing. I'm talking about peer relationships where to your point, where somebody Black would say Jimmy offline, yo, Jimmy,
no, he ain't got
what are you doing? Like he doesn't have that, and because he's a Chicago white boy. Like I get it. Like he was at best ever going to be that. But anyway, go ahead.
But the reality is, and what Ricky's saying in the chat is right. The West's argument in response to Jimmy Dore, the reason that it did not go well is because he did not argue his point well either. So you have both sides of this, right?
Oh, you're saying West on Dore didn't argue his point well? I didn't watch it, so is that what's being said here?
I didn't watch the full thing. Like I can fairly say that I refuse to give Jimmy Dore any of my time. So if it's clipped and it's on Twitter, I might press play, but usually I just ignore it. So his pushback my understanding, and if Ricky could chime in on the chat or whatever, would actually
Ricky can join it. I'm gonna put the link in the chat.
He would do a much better job
at
explaining how he failed at really
here's the link to the studio.
The problem is, right?
If Ricky, if you got a minute, jump on and break it down. But go ahead, yeah.
Because he, it really just turned into what Dr. West does all the time, which is he pontificates, right? Like he starts going, and then people feel like he's not really answering the question. And so then it looks as if Jimmy Dore is correct in like saying, and he's not. It's just that the answer is not really clear cut enough to explain why what Jimmy Dore believes about this situation is right. I've said multiple times, this issue with this big tent policy that everybody wants to sell with this class analysis, like we can all be under the tent, is that there is no tent big enough that you were going to build on this planet to cover me and someone who is trying to oppress me. We can't stand under the same tent because we are not looking for the same thing. You are looking for me to help you with the thing that you think is the biggest problem, but you will willingly leave me out there to suffer after we solve that problem. So therefore, we're not looking at the same end here, right? We don't have the same end goal, and that it's a problem. It's a problem.
So I see Paul Smith has jumped on. I don't know who Paul Smith is, but Paul, did you want to welcome? Did you want to make a comment or raise a question?
Yes, I'm calling from England, Birmingham, England.
Okay, right on.
American politics, particularly Black politics.
Did you just watch Bernardo Silva win the game for Man City? I'm just playing. I'm just playing.
We can't watch it live in England, unfortunately. We can't. If they're 3 o'clock kickoffs, we can't watch it live. So.
Oh wow! I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know, and I'm sorry. I don't know who Paul is either. Big Teal. I thought Ricky was going to jump in.
Here or not?
Paul just jumped on. But go ahead, Paul. I'm just messing with you. Go ahead, Paul. What's up?
Yeah. I've been concerned about RBN for a little while now. They're changing direction in terms of who they listen to and who they don't listen to. You know what I mean? I mean, they have on these so-called white leftists who I think are libertarians, in my personal opinion. If you call hardlens media or Jew dissidents, if you've ever heard of them, and of course Jimmy Dore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've had my concerns. They seem to be pushing way towards that direction too much, in my personal opinion. And I saw a little bit of the Cornel West interview with Jimmy Dore, and he's basically lecturing them about him not talking about white supremacy, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Cornel pushed back pretty well against that. Actually, he's basically argued his point very well against that particular narrative from Jimmy.
So Paul, I appreciate you. I'm gonna let since Ricky's here, I'm gonna let her tell you and the rest of us why you're wrong.
You left the StreamYard link in the.
No, I did. No, I don't mind you doing it. I left it for Ricky, but I don't mind that you jumped on at all, and I appreciate you listening in London. No, I appreciate you. No, thanks, Paul. I appreciate you, and I'm happy to have you jump on another time. But so Ricky, Paul said Cornel West did his thing, and
right?
Huh?
That's subjective.
I'm so glad you jumped on, Ricky.
Yeah, I've always held my criticism basically about the end goal of the campaign, which is, in the event that you don't win, what is the political project? And that hasn't been answered. But for me, the Jimmy Dore interview was a little more eye-opening in terms of Cornel's inability to adjust to who he's speaking with. I think that he was naive a bit coming into it. He approached him very brotherly, like he does every interview, not really understanding the dynamics or really understanding Jimmy's intention. But I was just in Managua in July for the Sandinista revolution, the recognition of it. And a lot of the white left were there. Rafiki Morris of the AAPRP, he has an ongoing joke. If you're looking for the real white left, they've all moved to Nicaragua. But yeah, so they were all there for the recognition. A lot of them were invited, like Max Blumenthal. And we were able to have a lot of these struggles. They have been sort of gunning for Cornel because they see Robert Kennedy Jr. being their guy. So they have kind of moved beyond Cornel in that sense. So the type of questioning that Jimmy was offering was not a surprise. The way that Jimmy attacked it was not a surprise because you can kind of sense that that's the direction that they're heading. They're trying to poke holes in the campaign and uplift Robert Kennedy. I don't know if he's a podcaster, but his name is Pasta. He's one of them. Before even having our struggle, he didn't know who I was, but he just knew that I was in Black Alliance for Peace, and he was like, "Oh, good, because I'm on Twitter right now arguing with Margaret." And so Rafiki and I was like, "We can argue with you. That's fine. Margaret not here, but we can do it." And that was the struggle that we had around, how they see and understand Robert Kennedy Jr. The vaccines, all of this stuff that they were talking about, the dismissal of Robert's, promoting of Israel, because the vaccines for them is a bigger issue. So there's a lot of contradictions that exist within that group, and they're all insulated now in this like little podcasting group. Like they all communicate. I believe there's a group chat going. So they are frequently, and they all go to these sort of delegations often. So they're in that space. So the type of questioning and the type of the way that Jimmy was coming at Cornel, I was not surprised. What I was concerned with is Cornel's inability to adjust to that. Because if you are campaigning there's going to be quite a lot more Jimmys. And if he can make you look foolish, then what does that say about a campaign that you don't even have a nomination for, right? He didn't get the nomination yet.
No, he's not. In fact, on the remix in the coming weeks, we're going to have other Green Party nominees coming through. So wait a minute. You're saying it got that bad that he to the point where he in moments looked even foolish, West?
Well, yeah. Well, the question of Russia came on. Him and Jackie struggled with that. That line is terrible. But then he also he has more of an issue. His less of it. Jimmy was able to paint him in a corner of being pro Biden, and he couldn't fight his way out of that corner. He could not get himself out of that corner. So for me, that was because if we're running a campaign that suggests that he's the left alternative and that he won't do what Bernie Sanders is doing, which is inevitably building up a mass base to shuffle them into the Democratic Party, that interview did not help his case.
Ooh. So I think I just saw, if I saw it correctly, I don't know if it's on the YouTube channel, but I thought I saw that Cornel West is going to be back on the platform with Kalonji in the next couple of days. We have to
on Monday. It looks
on
like
Monday,
at 2:00.
On Monday at 2:00.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Damn.
And he's going to have to start addressing these things because he also he went on to status quo after that happened, and I feel like he expressed himself much better with Jordan, but Jordan was not adversarial, right? Like he doesn't have a problem with the things that Cornel West says, but he asked him about, well, what's the plan, right? Like, are you going to do rallies? And he didn't have an answer for that either. Right. And, he was basically like, we still have to raise money. And, eventually we'll get to doing, rallies and having fundraisers. And he made this statement that, couldn't just be about electoral politics. And that this was a moment. He said, these were the words. He said it was a moment in a movement, was what he said, which sounds good. But how, like, what do you, and this is the same question I've been asking all the time. Like, what do you do? Like, what's the plan? How are we going to get that part of it done? And honestly, when PSL came out and when Claudia, when that piece came out announcing there, and they were like, we are trying to organize a movement and we want people to join organization. Like, I was like, what? I was like, this is not good for the Cornel camp, because people who are trying to get organized, they want to go with someone who can organize.
Or on the flip side, it could be good for the Cornel camp, because the questions that we've been posing is a lot of what it seems that this candidacy is offering, right? So it might just push him to actually find a base or develop a project alongside the campaign. I just think that there are things strategically that he's doing that I don't know how far he's going to get in terms of being able to build a base, because he's getting deflated so early. Because I don't know if he's prepared for a Jimmy Dore, right? Because it really looked like he did not see that coming. I mean, he came in there, he compared him to some great white man. I don't know.
He called Jimmy Dore anti-racist. And
he goes into, he approaches every interview like that, right? Which is not necessarily a bad thing on his part, but strategically, I think he's caught off guard, because he's entering spaces in a particular way, and that space might not be receiving him in that way, which is how that interview played out. And I don't think it helped the campaign, and I don't think the RBN breakdown of that interview helped the campaign, because they, aside from who these characters are, which is why I mentioned the conversations that happened when we were out of the country, because they're going to do what they're going to do. But if we're running candidates, which technically we're not running Cornel, right? But if we have a candidate that we are trying to push, then they have to be able to adjust to that or be prepared for that, because we're still in 2023. We haven't even really hit the new year yet. We're really going to uptick. There hasn't been a nomination yet. So we're gallivanting around someone saying that we can build a mass space around this person. We can build political projects around this person. And they're flailing so early. That's a cause for concern. That doesn't mean that he can't pick it back up, but that is something that needs to be reassessed. And possibly this PSL candidacy would be the battery in the back that they needed. The way they responded since, especially his wife, Cornel's wife, has been cussing Jimmy Dore's ass out. She has not been happy about
Really?
it at all. No, yeah, she's online. She's not happy about it at all. I think I think it's personal, more likely, that they do feel like they were personally duped. Like they didn't. It does read when you watch it that he did not expect that type of. It was ongoing.
The one clip I saw of that interview, what struck me maybe more than anything was that it was clear that Cornel West was no longer being seen as a senior statesman and scholar. Jimmy was, even when Cornel was responding, Jimmy was like, "You're wrong. This is like." Jimmy was like if Jimmy if Jimmy is a reflection of his audience, Cornel did not do anything.
And he is a reflection of his
And
audience.
he really is.
So then what I'm curious, though, I have to admit, what was RBN's breakdown? What was their assessment of that? And what are they advocating, by the way? Are they advocating that Dore is right and everyone should support RFK Jr.? And anyway, I think
mostly, I mean, a summary of their stream was basically the questions of where is this project going? This reads like another Dem project. It's concerning that, he does come off very pro-Biden in that interview, purposely so. And then Jimmy titles the interview the 45-minute commercial for Biden. Like,
oh, damn.
Yeah, that's the title of the interview. So, right. So it was not a good look. It was a hit. They have to, it's an L they have to take, especially if people they're trying to convince people that, West is a left candidate. And there's a lot of people who have a lot of questions before this candidacy about West's politics. And I think they just kind of blew that up a little bit, or at least attempted to. Yeah.
So I hope. So tell me what you both think of this. To the extent, Ricky, you got time to hang out. But one of the thoughts that I had when listening to Claudia the other day on the remix, and I thought her answer to the question of what is the point here was excellent. But I did think, thinking about it after the fact, that what I like in that answer might work against their efforts in terms of a broader populace. In other words, people still want at least. In other words, I guess what I'm thinking is the PSL campaign is overtly advocating for the building of the PSL and a broader socialist movement, whereas Cornel West's campaign is still at least flirting with that idea that this could be an actual electoral win. And I think so in the differences in there where I might agree more politically with the PSL perspective, I'm thinking the questioning voter, the third party potential voter, is not as likely to go with them as they would be with Cornel, maybe for the same reasons, Erica, you're saying about the flaws with what he's doing. I don't know. So I'm just wondering. I guess I don't know. I'm just wondering what you all think about I guess what I'm asking is the broader value to struggle of each of these campaign efforts, and what you all think. So at this point, we should be considering to do with our vote and electoral and political and electoral energies and political energies. If that did that make sense? I think that makes anyway. Yeah.
PSL runs yearly, right? I was actually shocked that it's Claudia, not Gloria, because I'm actually always used to seeing
Gloria right,
for president. So that was a surprise for me. But they run candidates often. Workers World runs candidates too. So I think, but I think the difference between what PSL and Workers World and those entities that are our organizations that are running candidates is that they are organizations that are running candidates. So their effort is to build out a base. Their effort is to expand their organization and possibly create a vanguard. By extension, where that is not the goal for the Green Party, which it is more electoral based. But I think if you're running on a third party ticket or as an elective party, for me, especially in terms of like how we understand community control, a lot of that effort is through electoral voting and entering that arena through city council and getting those votes. So speaking like with people like Max Rameau from PACA around these issues, he'd always say to me, whether or not we get the win is inconsequential. Is how many more people have been won over to what we are trying to do by the end of it. Like if we got the win and nobody got won over, then did we win? But if we lost, but we have 3 new neighborhoods ready and prepared to organize for the next go round, then that's a different situation. And I think that that's the distinction that I'm making, at least with how I understand the political arena. And then I also look at like entities like Charles Barron and what they're able to do on a small scale level, but within a very limited space, which dialectically says, you can't throw it all out, right? There is space to maneuver. So I think it's all figuring it out. I think a lot of it is political education based. And I think as people get more politically mature, they're less likely to be so rigid around electoral politics. I know that I certainly am, especially working with Ujima and understanding what it takes to build a party, especially in a state like Maryland. So I'm a lot less rigid about it. I have a little more grace for Cornel's campaign, but Ujima is a political project. So, we're starting from the ground up. And that's always my concern when you don't have that base, or even Ajamu, right? For instance, that base that was formed because Ajamu was running, that he didn't just like do nothing with it. The idea was, well, all these people wanted to vote for me for these particular reasons. There is a gap right now in this political arena of movement spaces. There is no Black radical tradition being uplifted. That was the call in the campaign, at least on his end. So an organization was developed out of that with other people, other like-minded people that knew that there was a base that was already brewing and following that wanted to be directed to somewhere. So that's the other thing that I don't think there's any consideration for. But Mid-Atlantic has our social today at Anacostia Park. So that's why I'm all done up, because I'm about to dip out and we gotta go. You don't hear my child busting through the door, but I am grateful for being allowed to get out the chat and explain myself.
Thank you.
I'm glad you
right
did
on.
Because I didn't watch the whole interview and you obviously did, and I clearly don't watch RBN, and so I'm glad you were able to give that like feedback as well, because I just can't. I don't have the energy for it.
Thank you, Erica, and enjoy the social. Peace, everybody. Have a good time.
Peace.
All right, right on. All right,
yeah. So, and what she's saying is right, and so this is always my it's literally always the problem. You cannot, and I've always said this, running a presidential campaign without having actual people who are within neighborhoods to have conversations about your campaign and who are already part of the community, right? I don't know how anything can get done that way. It's, because in the end, people are going to either not vote or they're going to go with the thing that they're comfortable with because they don't understand what your campaign is all about. So you're going to end up having the same problem, because anyone who is running for president is one person. And there are hundreds of millions of people they have to communicate with. So it's not possible to do that without having people on the ground. So I don't know how this, and you've heard me say it 1,000 times. I don't know how Cornel West I don't know how they're going to do it. I don't know what the plan is. I don't know. And I'm a Green Party person, right? And I go to my state meetings, and I'm part of the like committee people now because I decided I really wanted to pay attention, because the New Jersey Greens are fairly active and they do a lot of stuff in the state, and they are on the ground and they are in multiple communities and multiple districts and all those things. But even with that, I'm like, is Cornel West going to come have a conversation with Green Party? Is he just going to send an email to the person that's running for Senate that says, could you come and support Cornel West? Right? Like, how is it going to work? So when I went back, part of the reason I didn't watch this morning, what you did just before, is because the week had been so crazy between trying to finish this article properly and all the other stuff that I hadn't had time to really watch the remix show when they were on. And I wanted to make sure that I really watched it and understood everything that they kind of talked about. And they came to the table with the exact opposite plan, right? Which is, we're trying to build organizing on the ground. We want people to become educated. We want people to become, more aware of how they can, fight the system back by learning and by working within organizations, and write us in if you have to, right? Check the box if we're on there. And, our goal is to build a socialist party. And I was like, okay. And in the back of my mind, I'm not gonna lie, I was thinking to myself, is Diallo watching this? Because I could almost hear him say, so you're not really trying to be president then? Like, you're kind of, right?
He'd have been over there busting a blood vessel, talking about,
and so it's always the same problem. But the only thing that I will say is, if you go with the PSL plan, right, you run for president, but your real goal is to build a party. When you run in 2028, maybe you have an actual party to run with. And maybe you have the backing of it. Because you have to start somewhere, right? Like,
yeah, but to Ricky's point, though, I mean, they've usually recently it's been Gloria La Riva and others, but they've been running candidates every presidential election. I'm not in the party. I don't know what the internal discussions are like, but it doesn't feel like, and maybe this one will be different, but it doesn't feel like there's ever an effort or a goal or some sort of successful development of something from one campaign to the next.
Right.
So but that's the same thing I felt with the Green Party and everything else, that
right,
relative increases in engagement aren't sustained, and they're driven by an individual person, whether it's Ralph Nader or somebody else. Right. So I'm very interested to hear in these next few weeks, when we hear other Green Party folks, what they have to say and what they're thinking.
Is it Davi and the girl from Texas, whose name I can't ever remember?
You know what? One of them is named Jasmine, right?
Yeah, she's from Texas.
Okay,
she
and then
the death penalty, so she's an automatic no for me.
She supports the death penalty. Oh wow. Okay.
Unless she changed her stance between now and the annual meeting.
Well, all right.
Yeah.
And then the other one, let's see, is Camilla Harris. Does that name sound familiar?
No, you had Camilla on.
I've had Camilla on?
Yes, man. You're brutal. And you emailed me before you had her on, and I came on with you when you had her on.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
I'm like, Camilla's not running for president.
Apparently she is.
Is she?
Yeah, because her campaign contacted me.
She didn't.
Yeah, because she's coming on. She's coming on the Tuesday, the 26th at 9 a.m.
I'm about to fight her. She did not tell me she was doing that. Okay.
So yeah.
Look, I rocks with Camilla. Like, she, Camilla gets in a lot of trouble because she's just basically like, look, this is it, and it is what it is, and people don't do well with that.
Right, because I was still at the AAUP conference when we did that. That's right. I remember that. So right on. But yeah, no, her campaign or somebody from her campaign contacted me.
Okay.
And because they were hitting us up on Twitter and they were saying basically, are you all gonna have anybody else other than Cornel West? And I was like, yeah, whoever. I mean, holla. You know what I mean? It's whatever. You know.
Right.
So I look forward to that. But anyway, yeah.
So there's a lot, and I feel like you feel sometimes when people talk about the book. Like, I don't really have an answer, right? I don't really have like a clear cut, this is what we need to do, because the reality of the situation is the system is built to be like this, right? It's literally built to create this conundrum that people can't figure out how to break it. And that's intentional because it doesn't want to be broken. Right. And so
what's Jordan and Status Quo? What does that crew advocate electorally? Are you up on that? Like, do they have a consistent?
No. So Jordan's thing that he always says is literally like, vote the way you want to vote. I'm not going to tell you which way to vote, but I also am not going to stand here and say that it's stupid to vote third party. Like he wants people to do. His thing is like, I'm a journalist. My job is not to tell you which way to vote. My job is to give you all of your options, and then you can go out and decide which option is the best one for you.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So he does not take a stance, honestly. So
again, Sully Walker, I gotta hit my I guess petty refrain here. It is the issue with invitations is not us. The issue is reciprocity. So I think you would be better served sending this comment to them. RBN has been here. They were just here recently.
On Remix.
We're not over there. Brianna has been, I don't know if I've invited her directly, but there's been a number of times we've been supposed to have crossed paths. And one I know in particular, I believe it's been 2 or 3 times that she backed out. So I don't know what to tell you. You know, she's a busy person. And really, this is really the issue. The core difference for me is that Brianna and RBN, to the extent that I'm aware and have ever paid attention, they are desiring to talk to white majority audiences. And I think that's a core difference in our target effort. And I think that's probably why there's been less engagement from their side to us. But I feel like personally and as a platform, we've been very open and invited damn near everybody. There's really only one Voldemort on this platform that is expressively understood by name to never be allowed on. And this person has nothing to do with any of these associated issues or politics or people. So I don't know. And when you reach out to Brianna and them, remind them, I got a new book. I got a 2nd edition. I got to promote.
And she jumped off. I should have called Josie out while she was in the chat, because she's who I'm waiting for to get the final. So essentially what's happening, and for people in the chat, I'm dragging Jared to New Jersey because I feel like your voice on your book is important. I don't want to just hand people your book.
Thank you. No, sorry.
No, go.
No, I just want to clarify. Yeah, you're right. Sabby had Kamau on. Okay, so fair enough. Good. Anyway, so good. So there has been some reciprocity. I take it back. I apologize. I might not be aware of everything. So, but still, Solly, let's reverse this. Sorry about that, Renee. And you're not dragging me anywhere. I love going to Jersey.
That's good, because if this works out well, I'm gonna be all the time like, Jared, what you doing? Because
Yeah.
so part of the conversations that I really want to engage people in is how all of these things are connected, right? Like, how is Black buying power and this constant conversation about what Black people spend money on, right? And what's important to Black people. How does that also work into what shapes how the media talks about crime, right? Because if all Black people care about is shoes and clothes and yada, 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 right? Then it's very easy to always show the videos of Black people running out of stores with things, because that's what they, because that's what Black people care about, is the things, right? They're never going to show the videos of the white people running out of stores with the things because I've seen those, right? And they're not showing those anywhere. Because all these conversations are always in the end about trying to sell to the greater public that Black people are the problem. Right? And so if you really look at it from that perspective, what you talk about with regard to media and how it treats Black people, and this idea that, what's really important about selling Black buying power is making sure that you sell to companies the ability to sell to Black people. Right? Like all of these things are all worked in, they're all worked in together. And there's so much like,
because the Obama said it, right? Black people are the reason Obama didn't get as much of a vote his second term, and Hillary didn't win because of Black people.
Everything's always Black people's fault. I've never seen anything like it.
And now it's Cornel West's fault that they can't build a broad coalition because he keep talking about race.
Right.
It's Black people's fault for talking about race.
Right. Because that's the problem, right? And people also, they're so willing to like give grace to white people with their bullshit, right? It's always give them grace. Jimmy Dore is the most misunderstood man on the internet, because every time he says something stupid and somebody clips it, they get 8,000 responses saying this is out of context. Right? It is the craziest thing I've ever seen. Every single time you took him out of context, right? So Aaron Mate the other day, trying to call out New York Times and whatever, decided he was going to compare the Nazis in Ukraine to David Duke, right? So he had a quote, and he was like, something about David Duke said this, and he said, oh wait, that wasn't David Duke, that was actually so and so from the Nazi group in Ukraine. So me knowing that Aaron Mate, Jimmy Dore, Nick Brana of MPP, and all these people are all in the same circle, right? I have to wonder, did you pick David Duke on purpose because Nick Brana was just retweeting Cynthia McKinney talking about watching some conference with David Duke? Right? And people said I was just paranoid. He's just making a comparison. There's how many millions of racists you could have picked.
So wait a minute. So that's deep because Cynthia McKinney, I saw that. McKinney was saying she was supportive of the gathering between Irritated Jeannie, who we're not being critical of because I don't want another cease and desist letter. So if your wife want to do 8 hours of podcasts about the abuse she suffered in that marriage, I'm just saying that she did that. And if your response to that is to team up with David Duke against the Jews,
because Black people should work. Black people work with others to fight the bigger problem.
That's the unity.
That's the unity.
Work with Klansmen to get rid of the Jews, and then Black people can be free. And but I don't want another cease and desist. So that was the. She retweeted that, and she was like, "This is where I'm gonna be.
This is where I'm gonna be." Right. And of course,
Nick Brana's
People's Party and Nick Brana are like, yeah. right? And then here come Aaron Mate with this comparison. So me, as a person who reads way too much and who cannot help but to make the connection, I have to ask the question, is he intentionally downplaying the racism of David Duke because he's trying to what? Like, I don't know, like quiet on the quiet, like be like, well, David Duke isn't this same kind of Nazi. Right? Is he downplaying the white supremacy just a little bit with this?
So I'm reading it different. So I'm just now thinking of this for the first time, but because I'm guilty of the same approaches that you're talking about here. So, but I think I'm hearing it a little differently. I would have read this as Nick Brana promoting Cynthia McKinney's support of a Klansman as the flaw in the Green Party's approach. Because I did see the People's Party also put out a long assessment of the flaws in Cornel West and the Green Party.
Well, he got his money from them now, so he can say whatever he wants.
So I didn't read it, but it was very long. So he's got a whole argument. So I'm seeing the tweet and putting this together slightly differently. So he's saying, see, this is what you get when you support the Green Party. You get people whose identity politics lead you to working with the Klan. Because if I remember correctly, it's been a while, the gray zone is at least correct I thought they were correct on Russia, Ukraine in terms of understanding that Ukraine was being supported by the West in spurring this conflict, and it wasn't just all anti-Putin. So they would be saying that to support that argument, Aaron Mate would be saying the same Klansman that your Green Party supports here is supporting the Ukraine side of this conflict.
Cynthia McKinney's not part of the Green Party anymore.
But they don't. But that's not what they're saying. So my point is,
I don't know, because remember, Cynthia McKinney was up on that stage when they did their little fake anti-war, not really an anti-war rally. Her and Nick Brana are in.
That's a good point. That's a good point. She was also at that crypto conference in Mexico, or I think it was in Mexico, where they made that documentary about the white boy getting killed and all that other kind of stuff. She was supportive of that whole backwards ass.
Yep, and she's been her and Diane Sayre and Nick.
She also took a shot at me indirectly through a mutual comrade because I had my critiques of the anti-vax movement, and she said I had been. She told this mutual comrade that I had been suckered by the Zionists or something like that. So it was something like that. But if your analysis leads you to David Duke, I'm just going to assume I'm right. I'm not going to know. But okay, you got me on that. So I just thought I was just trying to put it together quickly.
No.
This
Nick
was
Brana's
their attempt to get rid of the Green Party.
No. Nick Brana's all on the Big Tent. Got to work with racists. He left the left, and that whole So so this is my point. Is like it was all about the grace for Mate, right? Like, don't be like that. He was just making a fair comparison. He was trying to point out how liberals are against one type of racist and not the other. And I keep saying, I get all of that, but why is he picking David Duke of all people? Because someone must ask the question. And these people trigger me, right? They get on my last nerve. They trigger me because they are always on this red-brown nonsense coalition foolishness. It's absurd. So I couldn't help but to ask the question because, I'm about aggravating people. And, people were like, I'm sure that, Mate will respond. I was like, he ain't paying no attention to me. He don't care what I have to say because he ain't, like you said, these people don't have no black friends. They've got no black friends. None of us.
And they don't even and even if they don't want to be social, they don't engage black thought. Like they don't. But I did see the correction. By the way, I did see the correction that Too Black had also been on RBN. So let me just make this. I'll just leave it with myself. I just think that the reciprocity ends with me. So I actually have said, I don't know what she's doing lately, and I don't watch often, but I actually think Brianna Joy Gray is a good interviewer, and I think that she's no dummy. And I'm just always bristling lately at people saying you should have so and so on, you should have so and so on. And I'm like, I've reached out to damn near everybody and been willing to rap with damn near everybody, and they don't holler back when it's vice versa time. So I'm just like, whatever. But okay,
bringing somebody on a show, like, okay, you can do that and check your box that you brought somebody on a show, but actually providing information and literal analysis that is going to help people understand the systemic problems, that's going to help people comprehend what they are living in right now in what's happening. Like, that's not happening. It's not happening over there. I'm sorry. It's just not. It's not happening over there. And so,
Aaron Monte, I'm sorry. Yipper was asking you if Aaron Mate talks to.
But we already addressed that you can talk to people and still not be an actual community with them in a way that person feels comfortable coming to.
Horn don't know who this man is. They're not hanging out. They're not. Yeah. And then, by the way, again, to my own personal experience, when Horn is on with Mate. And again, in one of the few areas that Horn, I would argue, is wrong in his support of Peniel Joseph's work on Black Power and Kwame Ture, and I reach out to Aaron Mate and say, by the way, you had Peniel Joseph on, and he's a mess, and you don't really know you don't know what you've stepped into. And Aaron Mate reaches back and basically says, well, Gerald Horn said he wrote a blurb for his book. So basically, who are you, Jared? It is like, in facts, if you don't know any better, and Gerald Horn says yes, and Jared says no, obviously. But to my point, and what I was trying to say to Aaron at the time was, this is as politely as I could, this is because you're out of your lane. So yes, he's a senior scholar. Yes, he's better than me in every way. But on this one little thing, if I could just put you up on some game, but there was never any other follow-up, and there was no willing to even expand the conversation. And that's why I was like, it was just thrown in my face. Well, nah, he said,
And people always do this. Whenever I try to say, like, why does Jimmy Dore keep telling people that Fred Hampton worked with racists, right? They say, well, why don't you talk to Jimmy Dore? First of all, Jimmy Dore blocked me months ago because I called him what he is, right? So he ain't talking.
Can I tell you the truth? I don't know if I've ever shared this publicly, but years ago, the first time I saw my man from RBN on Jimmy Dore's show, when they were still Fred Hampton leftists, I messaged Jimmy. And I was like, look, we don't know each other, but I appreciate your show. I just want to let you know that. And all I was saying was, there is a world of Black thought that goes beyond this dude. So I wasn't even hating on him, because I don't do that either. I don't hate on other Black people to white people that we don't know each other yet. And I don't know everybody's political position. But I was just trying to let him know, like, if you want to delve into these spaces, there's more than this guy.
There's a real way to do that. There's
more than this guy. And there was no response. So I was like, okay, I get it. It's all good.
You're not trying to do that.
But
James in the chat, please do your research on the Young Patriots, because they are not the white left. Just an FYI. This is part of the problem. People don't read enough. They don't.
Oh, what was being said? I missed that.
He said, RBN, FKA, Fred Hampton leftist, that's the one. They want to ally with the white left like the Young Patriots. Oh, maybe he's saying that they think, you know what, before I think I
see they want to ally with the white left.
Please, I'm not sure if you're saying that the Young Patriots are the white left that exists now, or if you're saying they're trying to align with white people who are actually like the Young Patriots, who were not racist and who were anti-communist. And
I think that's what James is saying.
Okay, all right.
Now I think James is saying that that RBN thinks of themselves as doing what Fred Hampton did by being willing to work with Jimmy Dore, but they're not realizing that Jimmy Dore is not the Young Patriots. Exactly.
Right, and that's the problem. That's the problem.
But the Young
Sorry,
Patriots
James.
didn't
I haven't
have
had my coffee yet. My bad.
But the Young Patriots didn't have a million YouTube subscribers or whatever. See,
There's
so
also
that's. So I've been thinking I wanted to do like a little mini discussion video on the subject lately, because I think in my head lately there's, and I've been saying it in my classes all week, that we have like a massive crisis in methodology, and I've fallen victim to it. And my point is, how do we, in this media political moment, how do we best apply, what methods are best applied to keep ourselves from being captured by foolishness?
I would say,
and we just don't have a good method. We don't have our methods right now. That's anyway. Go ahead. Yeah.
I mean, it's very hard, because you're toting a line, right? Like, y'all really, you get kicked off in a second if you say the wrong thing because of who you are. And in part, it's because you are really working towards trying to educate people in a way that is really about analysis and seeing the world for what it is, and talking about different things and looking at the diaspora, and not really just, being about the nonsense. Like, somebody was like, oh, RBN should do a show on this. I was like, they ain't doing that. It's like, that is not they stick. They trying to teach people something. And so what I find is the problem always rolls down to, you're not going to make a whole lot of money by being actual truth tellers. It's just not. Those two things are not in line.
See, Renee, this is what I'm saying. This is the crisis in methodology. This is what I'm saying. Staying away from Mama's Biscuits guarantees that you're going to have a hole in your soul, that you're going to be empty inside. Like, don't do that to yourself. But that's exactly my point. We have a crisis in our methodology. We have, like, yeah. Anyway,
so the decision really has to be that you're okay with that. That you are okay with not getting to, and it could be that as the class consciousness in this country changes, and as people become more invested in actually understanding the problems with the systemic issues, understanding the problems with all these things, like, maybe people will be more inclined to come to a place like BPM that is just giving you like real analysis and real conversations and those types of things. But for right now, I think your goal has to be to not get distracted by the nonsense, because it is very easy to say, we're going to go with the clickbait for this thing, right? Because it'll get us the super chats and get us to this and get us to that. But once you find out that it works, it's very easy to stare off path and end up just completely in the wrong place, because now you're worried about the money and the subs and the super chats and those things, and not really about providing honesty and analysis and intentional media that strives to teach people about the reality of their current situation. You have to stay intentional. That's
So listen, unfortunately, I got to start.
Yeah, you got to roll. Yeah, man.
My daughters, their schedules are just,
the kids, man. The kids.
They just
the kids.
So they need their chauffeur. So I gotta start getting.
Get ready. Don't make them late.
No, can't have that. But Renee, I really appreciate you doing this. So once we got to figure out, like, if this is a good time for you, we got to start routinizing. Like, we got spoiled with Renee out of school. When school is out, we got spoiled with Renee, and now we was all week kind of like, ugh.
It's hard. It's hard. Like, sometimes I'd be like, maybe I can get on at like 8 for like a half hour while I'm driving into work. And it's bad. It's a bad habit. It's a bad. Yeah.
And Kamau is starting to exert his authority and was like, we can't do car shots too much.
Yeah, so it's bad. It's not good for the channel to do that. He's right. He's absolutely right.
No, we just have to have you come back to my house and set you up in the basement like we've done again today. And Renee just got up early, jumped down 90 road, hit Jersey Turnpike, and was down here bright and early. And I don't see why that's a problem. Every Saturday you just make a 6 or 7 hour round trip.
Make the trip. That's it.
I don't see
No,
what the
I'm not
issue is.
actually. This could actually work.
Okay.
I think this could work. Let me just make sure that I'm not gonna mess up anything in my house if I do late morning.
No, as long as we out by 1 o'clock for warrior class. Because I don't want no problems with Baba.
I don't want no problems.
I don't want zero problems. I don't want with none of the crew. I don't want with Nikki. I want no problems with nobody. I can't dance with none of them. So we just gotta be out here by 1 o'clock. But if this works for you, let's rap.
All right, sounds good.
All right, good people. Thanks everybody. Peace and willing to fight. Go ahead, Renee. Yeah, get him.
There we go. All right, y'all have a good one. Thanks a lot, Jared. I appreciate you.
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.